This is a tale of Tannat, testosterone, and terrifyingly suspended wine bottles. The third installment in a series in which Mark pretends to understand wine, but then wishes he were someplace else. Stick around and you'll find out why.
The swing begins. Orwoll is at it again, and that cat is swinging. Yeah, that cat is swinging. The party
So there we were, meeting Daniel Paisano, who's the director of Paisano Wines, and also appears to be auditioning for the role of Uruguayan man most likely to appear on a playing card. I'm talking handlebar mustache. I'm talking the kind of carefree, comedic attitude that suggests he may have been sampling the merchandise. But here's the thing. This guy knows wine the way I know procrastination, intimately and with great expertise. Daniel runs the operation with his brothers Eduardo and Gustavo, who are the grandsons of Cesare Secundino Paisano, the winery's founder, and a man whose name sounds like it should be followed by the third and possibly a trumpet fanfare. The late Don Cesare, and yes, the family actually calls him that because apparently Grandpa wasn't fancy enough, left Italy in 1914, presumably after someone told him about Uruguay's exciting opportunities in not being involved in World War I. He settled near the town of Progreso, which is arguably the best grape-growing region in Uruguay, although I have no idea who's arguing about this or why. He planted vines and made his first wines in 1924, which means the winery recently celebrated 100 years of turning grapes into reasons for people to call in sick. And because Paisano means you are legally required to make wine, the next generation is also in the business. Great-grandson Gabriel Paisano runs something called Viña Progreso, an experimental project winery, which I believe is Spanish for what happens when you give a young person some grapes and a dream. Today you'll be tasting wine from 2 wineries, announced Daniel, as I sat in what can be described as a tasting room, only in the sense that it was a room and we would be tasting things in it. This is not one of those wineries with a gift shop and a lady named Brenda offering tours. There's no Brenda here. We were in an old kitchen featuring a fire pit oven whose stone walls are charcoal blacker than my reputation in journalism. And here's where it gets good. Overhead, balanced on wooden beams with all the security of Trump meme coin futures, are scores of empty wine bottles just waiting to become a lawsuit. Every time someone opened the door, I checked my will. The atmosphere is informal, medieval, and vaguely life-threatening. We sat at a long, scarred table that had clearly seen some action, possibly including Viking raids. The main grape here is Tannat, a bold, tannic red that could probably be used to waterproof your deck. Depending on the winemaker's skill, it might be described as anything from chewy, which is not a word you normally want applied to liquids, to sublime. One thing's certain, travel around Uruguay and Tannat will find you. It's like the country's Venus surveillance system. My brothers and I have only sons, Daniel declared with the gravity of a man declaring a state secret. 8 boys. That's because of Tannat. He said this with the kind of certainty usually reserved for conspiracy theorists and people who still think their cryptocurrency will bounce back. They do something called single row classic green harvest, which yields about 2 bottles per vine. For those keeping score at home, that's approximately $47 worth of wine per plant, assuming you're not drinking it all yourself. Concentration and expression, Daniel said, rising to emotional heights normally associated with opera or a MAGA rally. That's our business. We try to make wines paisano style, which I assume means wine with mustaches. In Uruguay, we make food wines more than pool wines, he explained, distinguishing between wines that pair with meals and wines that pair with regrettable decisions at parties. The vineyards sit just 20 kilometers from the sea, getting fresh ocean winds and an average temperature of 28 degrees Celsius, which is roughly 82 degrees Fahrenheit for those of us still using freedom units. In Canelones, Daniel said of his home state, because yes, Uruguay has states, who knew, you will find the traditional wineries, the family wineries. In Maldonado, you'll find the gentlemen's wineries, the investors' wineries. And by gentlemen's wineries, he clearly means people who got rich doing something else and now want to pretend they're rustic. They make good wines, he added diplomatically. But there's a difference. The difference being, we've been doing this since before your grandfather invented credit default swaps and nearly bankrupted the entire world. You're passing along heritage, Daniel said solemnly. The success of a winery is not the money you make, but the happiness you make. It should be noted that happiness and money are not mutually exclusive concepts, but I wasn't about to argue with a man whose family produces 8 male heirs per generation through the mystical powers of fermented grapes. Besides Tannat, Paisano grows Petit Verdot, Chardonnay, and Cabernet, which sounds like a law firm that specializes in very relaxed litigation. We don't have a strategy, Daniel insisted, which is either refreshingly honest or slightly concerning, depending on whether Paisano Wines is part of your investment portfolio. We are not big on over-explaining, he said, apparently unaware that he'd just spent 20 minutes explaining. Every wine has to speak for itself. And frankly, after a few glasses of Tannat, everything speaks for itself. Loudly. Usually around 2 a.m. Hey, I had a great time visiting Paisano Wines and meeting Daniel Paisano and the rest of the crew. Great people, great wines, all from Uruguay. Check them out if you have a chance. Also, be sure to come back here. Mark Orwoll is at it again. I'll see you next week. Mwah.
Let the swing begin. Mark Orwoll is at it again, and that cat is swinging. Yeah, that cat is swinging. The party don't stop when Mark